You've connected to Cisco Unplugged.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cisco Unplugged. I'm Dan Klamert, your host. And this week in episode 53, we're going to be discussing part 2 of Catalyst Center best practices. So I would like to first welcome back to the show, Al.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing good, thanks.
And then I'd also like to welcome to the show for the first time, Deepak Kumar. How are you doing, Deepak?
I'm good. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks a lot for being here. So before we get started, just a couple of reminders. We do have Slido up and running. You'll see on the screen, and also below the YouTube feed, we have the link there. You can join the Slido to ask questions. We also are monitoring the YouTube chat there next to the stream on YouTube. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Fire away. We've got people standing by to answer those, or we can also maybe address those live here on the show. As usual, we are recording and streaming to YouTube. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/@getunplugged. Go out there, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you are notified when we do go live and post more great content like this on the channel. So before we get started here, I just want to talk a little bit about last week's show and recap here. So I should say 2 weeks ago, the previous episode. So if you missed, I would encourage you to go back and watch part 1, was 2 weeks ago out there on the channel. Episode 52 was Catalyst Center Best Practices part 1. So what we did was we discussed migration, the DN1 to DN3, Catalyst Center hardware. We talked about kind of some of the pre-flight checks here before upgrading your version of Catalyst Center, running the validation tool reports, and performing general upgrade preparations. That's really helpful, really important. We talked about some swim processes and checks. And then we also talked about ensuring that your valid CCO and device credentials are correct. And then we also talked about installing the Cisco Support Assistant extension on Chrome browsers. And then also we talked a little bit about the escalation process. So that was kind of a recap. I would encourage you to go back, watch last episode, I should say, 2 weeks ago. And with that, I will turn it over to, I believe, Deepak here, and we'll get into some of the part 2 best practices here for Catalyst Center.
Just real quick, by way of introduction. So, because Kevin was on last week, so just these guys, so if you have a problem with Catalyst Center, it goes to TAC, and then if TAC can't solve it, it goes to these guys, right? So these guys are the guys that really know what's going on under the hood. They're also the ones that issues get bubbled up to, right? So they have good reason to want to make sure that things don't happen here, right? So I think we Dan, you and I talked about this some time ago. Yeah. Hey, we do this for wireless, right? It's like
we do,
and it helps. It helps our escalation team because we can avoid problems up front. And I think based on today's session, what I've seen from some of the content earlier, this is going to be a really great session because it's going to get down into some of the weeds about what to do, what not to do, and how to keep your Catalyst Center healthy.
Absolutely.
This is like these guys are like the doctor. You don't want to go see them, but if you need to, it's good that they're there.
It's great that they're there. Actually, it's very great that they're there, and that's a great added context. Thank you, Al. I agree. Yeah, and kudos to them for taking and being proactive here to kind of head some of this off at the pass. Like you said, we've done these. We've learned from the wireless being beneficial. We've talked about this for a little while, and again, really excited to be able to bring this content out too, because it does help you, our customers, our viewers, and then it also helps us too. Somewhat selfishly, where we're helping you prevent stubbing your toe, and following these best practices can help save calls into our TAC. And so kudos to this team. I know Srinath's team, Surendra's team, they've been great partners to helping us be proactive rather than reactive. So great points, Al. Thanks.
Yeah. No. All right, Deepak, go ahead and take it away.
So actually, I'll
Yeah,
be
it's
starting off with this section, but it's
yeah.
fine. No worries. So there are two ways that we generally promote you to add the device at DNA Center. One of them is going to be Greenfield PNP, but the most common that people are going to use is discovery process, which is for brownfield learning. So you can see over here, the sections highlighted in blue are going to be how you get there and what to use. Now, the reason why we recommend the discovery flow for onboarding known Cisco devices is because there's checks. It uses a lot of the integration that we already have. So let's just go ahead and get started on that one. So generally, this is one of the reasons why we promote it is because you can do ranges, as you can see on the top, where I've done .12 to .15, and you can also specify one particular IP address. You see, I've done .10 to .10. So here's where things come in, and they're a little more handy. You can, as you can see here, you can set credentials, you can set ports, you can set things that are both job specific and global. So you can pull from or existing repositories of credentials, or you can set one specific for this site or this jobs, and they'll run for only these particular devices and also save when it to that device in inventory. So you're going to have to kind of remember and keep track of that. An additional feature that we added is you can directly assign the site, which will also push configurations for assurance. Well, although we do provide this, we do not recommend you do this because there's an automatic assignment of role that we do based on assessment. So if you have a existing device that's functioning, running traffic, for example, that is a core or a distribution, you don't want it accidentally being flagged as access due to some of our automated assessments. The reason for that is when we push out a lot of these assurance type configs, it can put a lot of load on. For example, if we turn on NetFlow, AVC, or IPTT, you don't want those turned on the core or distribution. You only want those on access. So we recommend that what you do is you just add it on for your heavy loaded sites, and then go to inventory to do that. Now, going back to the discovery, here is probably the biggest reason to use this particular feature. What we do is we validate that the device exists through ICMP. Specifically, we use XPing, and then we check your SNMP credentials, your CLI credentials, and your netconf is up. If you had set HTTP credentials, we will check those as well. Now, one of the big keynotes here is please make sure ICMP works and it flows all the way to the end device. If you do not, the discovery process will fail. So if you remember from the previous slide, I set from 12 to 15. As you can tell here, there is no 15. That's because there's no device that responds to that ICMP. Here I also have a .12 device that I forgot who put that in, but what it did is it responded to ping, but didn't respond to any of the other credentials that I had set. So you can tell here is real quick, an easy way telling, hey, look, we got a device here. It should be here, but it's failing due to these things. And I can go and check it out really quickly. So now that we've added it into inventory, let's go and take a look at what some basic things we need to do in inventory. So the first thing you do when you go in is you need to make sure that the device role is correct. Is it access core distribution? Because we do automatically apply some of these assessments. For example, if you have a 9200, it's got a lot of access ports, we're going to flag it access. It doesn't have a lot of upstream trunk ports, then, but if it happens to be a core distribution for a smaller site, you might want to go in and change that to core distribution before you assign it to a site. When you assign the site, we allow a config preview to kind of view, hey, this is the configurations we're going to push. This is the SNMP. This are the credentials. Just please be aware that we will do things in that regard. If you have any sort of specialized configuration on there, you might want to review that before going in. And most importantly, please remove anything that's no longer in service or has been aged out and removed from the network. This is just general hygiene. this page loses a lot of value if you have a bunch of old devices showing unreachable, unmanaged, and you can't really use the reachability filter to figure out, hey, is my device reachable from DNA Center? Do I need to investigate? So this is a new functionality that we kind of brought in. While AIRM is not in and of itself isn't new, we have now introduced a assurance-only AIRM, which means we don't require full control of your wireless LAN controller. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit now and some of the additional features. We've done a change where this new busy hour, the new low, instead of restricting changes or reducing the number of changes, we've now halted changes except on DFS and EDRM if you've turned it on. And we've also made a change where the dynamic band selection is going to be off. These are just general questions that we've often encountered with people who when asking about AIRM. So the Catalyst Center now with assurance only will only push the AIRF profile that AIRM uses. So that way, if something happens to the connection to the cloud or the Catalyst Center, the controller will default back and it will use the same configuration that the Catalyst Center is using. So you have parity between the two. So as of today, AIRM is going to be the entire building. You cannot break down by floor. So you can't say, hey, I want half of this building ARM, half of it traditional. And this also applies to the entire wireless LAN controller as well. So those are kind of two restrictions you're gonna have to work together to combine. And on the aspect of losing cloud connectivity, what happens is if Catalyst Center loses cloud connectivity, it will relinquish control back to the traditional wireless LAN controller RRM process, as well as obviously if the RF group leader Catalyst Center no longer replies to heartbeats, obviously the controller will take back over. So, and then that comes to now the changes that are pushed from the Catalyst Center cloud. What happens is these are static configs. So what happens is the cloud will issue a specific channel and a specific power level to the Catalyst Center. We'll then turn around and turn that into a command to request a static AP assignment for both the channel, the band, the width, and as well as the power level. So now a lot of times people ask, hey, what kind of data are we holding? Yes, it is secure. It is hashed. So it's very difficult to identify who is associated to what data. And as with for those in the European theater, if you need your data removed, please just let us know. We can take it out. Also, I believe it's held for a 3 to 5 year period based on our standard cloud data policies.
Hey, Kevin, real quick, I just want to throw in a quick commercial here for if you are curious more about AIRM, what it is, how to enable it, turn it on, those types of things. Darshan did add a video on this on our channel. That's out there. Also, a plug for an upcoming episode. In the near future, we've got one of the engineers that is developing and has developed AIRM coming on the show. So we're going to talk more about it then as well.
So this is the point where I'm going to hand over to Deepak to talk about issues and events and how to fine-tune your assurance to make it more valuable to you.
Thanks, Kevin. My name is Deepak, and I'm with the Catalyst Center Escalations team. So let's look at some of the best practices for these issues and events in assurance. So why do we need to manage issues and events queue? So the major reasons are that default alerts and thresholds will not fit all the networks, and keeping default settings may result in a flood of false positive alarms. Now, how to manage these? So we have got different KPI settings for routers, core distribution and access switches, controllers, access points, wireless clients, and wired clients that we can set up according to our network requirements. Then we have global issue parameters also that you can tweak according to your network requirements. And this is our recommendation that you should be visiting the Insight and Trends page once a week to spot the problem before it escalates. Next slide. Yeah, so as you can see here, right, these are this is one of the message, okay, that was received for a wireless LAN controller in the queue. Now, if this issue has been resolved, okay, you can just like mark it as resolved or ignore. As you can see the arrow pointing towards the actions. So if you click there, it will give you the option either to resolve or ignore. In the ignore, we have the option if you want to ignore it for 1 week or couple of hours. So that's how you have better insights in the network once you start acknowledging these messages.
This is to combat what we used to have on Prime when we had the 999 at the top. Is that right?
Yeah.
Everything was set to 999. It's like all the alerts were set to 999. So
That
manage
was my
it right
favorite.
away.
I saw a shirt on that once. I want to get that shirt.
Yeah.
Love to have that shirt. Yeah.
Classic.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next recommendation is that you should create custom issue rules as per your network site's requirement. So I have highlighted over here, okay, we have the option to create an issue as per your syslog details. So that is another way of like customizing the issue rules as per the network. Next slide. Okay, so here our recommendation is that you should have the health KPI settings, okay, configured instead of using the default settings. I have taken an example for the health score KPI setting for air quality 2.4 gigahertz for an access point. And as you can see here, we have the option that you can set up the channel threshold as according to your requirement. So basically, this is like that you are setting up the KPI settings to identify any issues if you see in the network. Next one. Yeah, again, here we have the option to set up the priorities, and we recommend that from time to time you set up the priorities as per the criticality of the issue to keep critical issues on the top. If you don't do that, then you might miss any critical issue that is going on in the network because the queue is getting filled with messages. And as we know that these severity 1, severity 2 alerts, they are important and they need to be act on timely. So definitely you need to set up the priorities as per the issue criticality. Next one. And this is another recommendation that you should keep checking the event analytics page on weekly basis for insights on ongoing issues that needs to be addressed on urgent basis. So when you click on any specific date and time, it will give you the details of the issues that occurred depending on the severities. Next slide. When you click on the detail, okay, it will show you the different messages, and then the message, okay, depending on the severity, which is more important, you can check it as I pointed out with the error, and that will give you more details about it, like which device it belongs to and where that device is located. So that's actually like a good way of locating any device that is having issue and what action needs to be taken as per the error message. Over to you, Kevin.
Hey, before we jump to the next section here with Kevin, I got a question here. I think we've got a couple that were around versioning and support of devices. I believe those have been answered, so thank you. But there's one here I wanted to just bring up around backups. And is there a plan to add functionality to limit the amount of backups kept? We run into an issue where the backups, non-assurance data filling up the drive on our backup server. It would be nice to be able to keep X backups functionality built into Catalyst Center versus having to use a third-party scripts on the target.
So you guys are referring to the fact that we don't actually go into the backup of Postgres and Mongo, which is actual storage of actual configs, and clear those out. I don't believe that there
Correct.
is. The reason why is because we've taken a stance of, hey, that we don't want to go in and touch those items because they are critical to your network, and we don't want to accidentally remove ones that we shouldn't, or somebody doesn't realize that they're getting auto deleted, and at some point in time, like, hey, we needed one from 6 months back, and it got auto cleared. So we want the owners of that particular server to be the ones who manage it and decide that when and where to remove these backups, or if they want to ship them off somewhere else for long-term storage.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks,
And
Tim.
that might actually be part of the best practices too, right? Is to actively manage that, right? Because otherwise your backup server gets full, you don't get backups. And then when you need them, right? So that it's if we can't set a threshold on there, I guess we just have to include that as sort of part of the best practices, which is, hey, go actively manage this. No, probably not desired, but it is in that point, it is what it is, right? So
Yeah, that is the process, or that is the I guess approach we've taken at it. Obviously, it's subject to change, but as of today, that is how we have chosen to do things.
Yeah, better to know that up front than be surprised at a later point. So, thanks. All right, go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
Yeah, so now we're going to talk about certificates a little bit. So certificates, for those that actually use third party or manage your certificates, can know that there are a lot of them. Sometimes there are certain requirements and restrictions to allow them to function. So we're kind of just talk about a little of the requirements to try to get some of them out of the way up front for some of the easy and simple items. So Catalyst Center, now we allow you to generate CSRs off of the center. I believe that's been there for quite some time. But with that, there are some requirements that we need in order for not just the certificates themselves to load, but for the supporting devices such as switches and wireless LAN controllers. So a requirement that is, hey, can you guys please put on all IP addresses, not just the ones that you believe that are talking. For example, the enterprise VIP is what's pushed a lot of times to the end device, such as a switch or a controller, so that it can communicate back when establishing connection. But if the Catalyst Center is one producing the connection or initiating it, for example, when you're doing inventory resync, it will use the local node IP address. So you would need both the virtual IP address that's handed around by the, I guess, cluster master or owner at the time, and the individual IP addresses of the nodes. And then also that holds true for management IP addresses as well. You want to have those all in there. Now, if the cluster communication is having a problem, obviously you need to put those in there. So you need all those IP addresses. Now, if you're doing DR, this is where sometimes people run into problems, because now you've added an additional layer of the DR IP addresses, and now also you're having certificates that must effectively match, right? So what you need is one CSR with all of the IP addresses, and because you need to load the same, it's recommended that you load the same cert on both sides. That way you have a giant list of IP addresses, and you won't lose communication halfway through if you have an event. That requires your standby site to become active. If you're using FQDM model, please make sure that both sides have the same host name. Periodically, we run into issues where just because it says, hey, I want to know which side is which, and I'm going to set different host names. Please do not do that. And as you can tell, we give a command to how to do check. Now, this command, you can make alterations. Please don't. You just hit next until you run to the FQDM page. There are probably going to be questions on this page. Are there any before I go on?
Nothing that's come in so far, but I do see this as one of those things that's really valuable. I mean, if you're not sure what he's talking about, just reach out to one of your account team members or something like that, because it's very important that these IP addresses get into the certificates, because if you have failures and they're not, you may not get the result you want.
Correct. Recently, we ran into a particular issue with a customer where they didn't have the DR VIP on both certificates, and what happened was, after the failover event or during a certificate refresh, the new certificate didn't have the DR VIP, and what happened was immediately all the telemetry tunnels just stopped. So you would
Right.
so you'd receive zero assurance from all your controllers, which effectively means they're unmanaged from a monitoring perspective.
Yeah. So if you're, I mean, if you understood what he said, hopefully you understood what he said. But if you're not sure, and you're adding certificates to DNAC, reach out to open a TAC case. Reach out because you want to get that right up front.
Yep. And as for other certificates we use, I'm going to turn over to Deepak to talk about AI analytics certificate.
Thanks, Kevin. So this is a very common problem that we see very often on Catalyst Center, that the AI analytics certificate has expired. Now, the certificate renews on its own over a trusted connection with the cloud. So the user has nothing to do. However, there are exceptions. Like, for example, you restore a backup on Catalyst Center, and that will have an expired certificate in its database. And sometimes it's not able to override the renewed one. So in that case, the new one is not downloaded offline, or you can have issues with your connection, or somehow it didn't get updated. So a manual OTP is required. And definitely for that, you need to open up a tag case. The cert expiry is the cert is valid for 1 year, and the process of renewal starts 30 days prior to expiry. So our recommendation over here is that you should always check that you have cloud connectivity so that the cert renewal can happen on its own. Now, there could be scenarios, okay, where the config has expired. Okay, so we have the option to download the config file from cloud. So before opening up a tag case, you can try to attempt this if you have cloud connectivity, and this should also refresh the certificate on Catalyst Center. Next slide. Okay, this is another common problem, like you don't have data on assurance pages, what to do? Now, there are some steps that you can follow to identify if you can actually try to resolve the problem on your own with some quick actions, or you need a tag case to address the issues. Now, you can verify, the first step is to verify the status of pods or containers. So with this command, you can actually see if there is any pod or container that is not running or that is having some issues. I have highlighted this serviceability pod. As you can see, it is showing up error. So yeah, we need a tag case to further investigate what exactly is wrong with this pod. Second step is to verify the available disk space. Any usage of more than 85% in any of the partitions could indicate a problem. Okay. In NDB partition, usage of more than 75% may indicate that the data purge is not happening. So yeah, we need a tag case to further investigate this, that why this problem is happening. Next slide. And same goes with the free memory. If it is less than 20 gigs, it is bad. If it is less than 10 gigs, it is worse. So again, this we need to investigate what is the cause of memory if we are seeing any issues related to it. Now, step 3. So this is the most important part of assurance. Any device, okay, if you want to see the assurance data, it needs to be in managed state in inventory. So till the time the device is not in managed state, definitely you are not going to see any assurance data for that device. Next slide. Telemetry is another aspect that needs to be in running state for a device. Now, sometimes telemetry might be showing some error. So now, either it could be a Catalyst Center side issue, or it could be a device side issue. We have this smart tool inbuilt in Catalyst Center where you can perform assurance telemetry analysis. So that gives you basically a detailed overview of what exactly is the problem due to which telemetry is failing. There could be scenarios where a device side issue might be contributing to it, and you might be able to resolve it on your own. However, in case if it is something that is showing up as a Catalyst Center problem, definitely you need a tag case. But it is actually a very good smart tool. We recommend you to use this tool very often whenever you see any telemetry issues to understand if your network problem is not the one that has caused the telemetry to fail.
So
Next slide.
I'm gonna cut in real quick, Deepak. So there is a reason why step 4 in this case is behind step 3. As of today, the telemetry analysis runs on what the DNA center knows. There is some discussion around trying to reach out and perform an assessment against the device itself. For example, if the tunnel is down, that's a check directly against it. But let's just say the certificate is bad.
Yeah.
Right now, we run a check against what the DNA center has on file for the certificate. So if you do not have an up-to-date resync, this analysis will not be correct. I'm discussing with the development team and trying to ask them to, hey, can we run a command against the switch itself and then perform the analysis on what we expect versus what's on the actual device? So
yeah,
that's just one of those things that you guys have to be careful about right now when utilizing this particular feature. Back to you, Deepak.
Okay, next one. And if you see issues with telemetry, we have the option to update the telemetry settings. As I have highlighted in the slide, we have the option to check force configuration update. So if you select this option and hit next, it will basically update the configuration on the device. And basically what Catalyst Center does is that it will push the configuration from starting, but it does not overwrite any configuration. So you can be like, you don't have to worry about like it's going to reset anything or it's going to like cause any downtime. It will not. It will just check the configuration, whatever is missing, it's going to fix that. Next slide.
Yeah, so just to add to that,
one caution. Sorry, let me just interject. One cautionary point on this is that he's updating the telemetry in that menu. There's also the ability to add application telemetry. If you change application telemetry, that can be disruptive. So make sure you follow what they're saying exactly here, right? There are different there are different buttons here, and they're telling you, they're giving you a very specific set of instructions here. So follow these to the T, because if you hit the other one, you will have it will cause it'll cause your APs to blink, basically, for example. Right? It's not going to be a long outage, but your client's going to disconnect. So, and it'll tell you that when you so it's not going to be a surprise. But if you do this, there's no issue with support or anything like that. I'm sorry, just go ahead. I just want to make sure, because I've had that happen before, where somebody went in and clicked the wrong button and lost a lot of clients.
Yeah, so
that's a good point.
Yeah, and there's a part of that. There are some aspects that are kind of adjusted. When you do a force push, since you can't have more than one cert, it actually removes the certificate and then replaces it. So you're not going to see an impact on that. The only caveat is we do some SNMP work. So you might want to, so if you guys have unique specialized SNMP or ACLs with that regard, you may want to review the config just before pushing it.
And this is where, I mean, so these are the two key points, that no configs are pushed if any configs are detected, and no cert is pushed if certs are detected. Next slide, please. Okay, this is another important aspect of to verify. This is like the step 6. If your pipelines, they are running or not. So you can simply go to the system data platforms. You can view the status of the pipelines here. As you can see on the top, it says running job 17. So these are 17 pipelines which are responsible for different processes, and they all are in running state. So whenever all of these pipelines are running, you should be seeing assurance data. Next slide. If in case you see any pipeline that is in canceled state, okay. Now over here, I have taken the example of this device processor pipeline. It's in canceled state. So there is an option to restart the pipeline next to it. So you can hit that option. It will take like 1 or 2 minutes, and it will try to recover the pipeline. Most of the time, the pipeline should be able to recover itself. However, if you try like couple of times and it's not coming up, definitely you need a tag case, as we need to investigate further what exactly is going on. But that is a way of like you can try to fix the pipeline issue by restarting it, giving it a try. Now, in older versions of Catalyst Center, and this has been a confusion, that you see time series analytics 1, time series analytics 2 pipeline. Okay. However, the time series analytics is the only available one, and the rest two are non-available, and they will show in cancelled state. So this can be ignored, as these are not relevant anymore. So never get confused that time series analytics is running, but the other two are not, are in cancelled state. So yeah, those are not relevant anymore, and that should not have any impact on the functionality of assurance. Next one. Yeah. Over to you, Kevin.
Alrighty, so this is RadKit. Some of you are familiar with it, but those of you who aren't, this is our kind of Cisco solution to the endless hours of WebEx, where you must tie up one of your resources, and they're just sitting there staring at a screen, twiddling their thumbs while TAC just does whatever they need to do, right? So to try to reduce those type of calls and I guess the kind of just sitting there watching and waiting, this tool allows us to change how we troubleshoot and how you guys can give us access directly to devices. Now, initially, people are going to be very hesitant about it. You know, what is security? What are other things like that? We will talk about that. So just kind of a high level, hey, what does it do? It allows you to grant specific employees, like you will actually enter in which employees' IDs you want access, how long you want them access, and to what devices you wish to grant them access. Just FYI, this is not limited to Catalyst Center. You can grant access to controllers, switches, anything that is Cisco. So if you have, for example, like a lab device and Catalyst Center not working together, give us access to both, and we can effectively take it from there. The thing is, you can grant both CLI and UI access to Catalyst Center, but that is only capable on 237 and higher. So as of those who you work on DNA Center will know, or Catalyst Center know, it's without the UI, you're very limited on what you can troubleshoot, what you can reproduce, and what you can view. So if you wish to take full advantage of RadKit, please look to upgrade to 237 code. I believe 2379 is out or should be out very soon. So, and one of the biggest payoffs and greatest benefits you can have is that instead of having to schedule WebExes all the time, be like, hey, I need access. Hey, I need access. I need to pull this. I need to run an RCA. We can actually reproduce it and pull it ourselves if we need it. So, and then that can also grant like the engineering team direct access through TAC, or you can grant the engineers access directly. So if you need more specific items or more specific like information, there are some tutorials and videos attached below. So just kind of a high level overview of where communication works and how things work. So we have the customer premise on, which will probably be your right. So what happens is the engineer will actually log into what's referred to the RadKit cloud, and the RadKit service will also go in from there. So communication works from that direction for authentication. Now, this is probably the most important slide that people are interested in. What kind of communications do we have? We have end-to-end TLS 1.3 communication, and for different types of things. Now, obviously, the UI live troubleshooting, that is going to be for Catalyst Center 237 and higher, which we really would need. So if you wish to, once again, if you wish to use RadKit to its full capabilities, please go to 237. If you guys, I'll just kind of leave this up for a little longer so that way people, they want to take a look at it, they can. So here are some general questions that people have posted to TAC. So I'll kind of leave this up and you guys can kind of view through it. But some of the main ones are obviously privacy, We do record everything that is done, and all things are restricted to specific CCOs, meaning specific credentials of specific users that you've granted access. Obviously, the audit trail, most importantly, cannot be altered by Cisco. So if we're doing something, you guys can track it. You guys know about it. And yes, and most importantly, authorized users. This is set by you guys, and it can be revoked by you guys, and we can't really do much about it because what we do is we issue from the other end asking for permission. That is everything for when it regards to that. I guess I'll turn it back to you guys.
All right. Very good. And just sort of a maybe a quick recap on those certificate issues. So for the most case, these certificates should take care of themselves, right? I mean, obviously, like the first one where you had to provision the certificate correctly up front, that's important. But generally, you shouldn't have to do a telemetry push or something like that. This is in the instance that something happened, it didn't work, so you're just doing it. It's kind of like the override button, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So generally,
Okay,
we will renew the certificates automatically, and I believe for telemetry itself, that certificate is only valid for a year.
Okay. So it's not like a maintenance kind of thing. This is just something that you periodically might have to do. And all those CLI commands, those are all accessible. Anybody that has access to the maglev can see those. They're kind of basic CLI commands you had listed, correct?
Yeah, I can go
Yes.
to those real quick.
Doesn't require. That's right. I just want to make sure it doesn't require any special access or anything like that. So
No.
No,
Yeah.
that command that does not require any specialized access. You can run that command outside of shell.
perfect. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Thanks, guys. Great job. This is super useful information. So hopefully, people will be able to take this and be able to operate their Catalyst centers more efficiently. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Deepak, Kevin, and thank you, Al. Great episode on Cat Center best practices. So thank you to the audience for tuning in, for some really good questions there, and to our Q&A managers for helping address those as well. It looks like we're good on questions and all caught up. So it will just remind everyone, if you do have any questions, would like to reach out, you can always reach out to your Cisco account team. You can email us directly at getunplugged@cisco.com, direct on Twitter X at unplugged80211, or threads at unplugged connectivity. So reach out if you have any questions, any feedback. Hopefully this was helpful, like Al had said. And thank you for your time. And again, stay tuned. We've got some great upcoming episodes here, which we alluded to, but look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, stay connected and unplugged.